Welcome to this video from the listening section on how to do short answer questions. And I'm going to share a strategy for this type of question and also provide you with a link to the recording and the answers so that you can practice it when the video, this lesson is completed. When it comes to short answer questions, you will be asked to fill in 1 to 3 word answers, and you'll have to write these answers out in full. And I just want to begin with a tip when it comes to this, and this has to do with spelling. Because in order to get your mark for the question, you do have to spell the words correctly. And sometimes this is a little cause for concern because as you're listening and you have to follow along with the recording, sometimes the correct spelling doesn't come to mind right away. So my first tip when it comes to writing and answering any questions where you have to write in 1 or 2 words, that if at the moment of having to write in the word, you recognize the word you have to write and you know the correct word, but you're unsure of the spelling, just write the word in, even if you think you might be spelling it incorrectly. During the recording is not the time to be spending time overthinking about spelling a word correctly. What you can do is during the 10 minutes following the listening test, the 30 minutes of the listening test, you are given 10 minutes to transfer your answers from the notebook to an answer sheet. And while you're transferring the answers, this 10 minutes, which isn't a part of the listening test, this is the time to check your spelling. This is the time to give a little extra thought to making sure you're spelling the words correctly. It's really important as you're listening to the recording to answer the question as soon as you know the answer and then move on and prepare to answer the next question. It's not the time to overthink when it comes to spelling because you will have time during that 10 minutes to check your spelling and check your answers. And this is just another little tip that I'll add to this before we get started on exactly how to do the strategy for short answer. At the end of each set of questions, at the end of each that go with each recording, you are given time to check your answers. So what should you do during this time that you're given? Don't check your answers, because really the only thing that you could check for is spelling. You can't go back and hear the recording again. You only hear it once. It's really impossible to check your answers. So whenever you're given time during the listening test to check your answers, just move on to the next section and start using the extra time to predict and prepare for the questions that you're going to hear in the next recording. So that's just a couple of tips to get you started, but let's go through the strategy for short answer questions. As usual, the first thing we always do is we listen and we read the instructions and we mark them, we underline them to make sure that we've clearly listened to the instructions. And in this case, you're allowed no more than 3 words and or a number. So any combination of number and words, as long as it doesn't go beyond 3, is acceptable for your answers in this question. And you will also notice that in the instructions, they'll say you have time to look at questions 1 to 5. So this is just to be careful that you only look at questions 1 to 5. Don't look at 6 to 10 because you will be given time to look at that. Spend all your time preparing for just the questions you're going to hear in this part of the recording. So listening to instructions, knowing exactly the task you have to achieve, how many words You can underline it so you made sure in your own mind that you've looked at them and read them, and you won't be giving that a second thought if you come to a question and have to ask yourself, oh yeah, how many words am I allowed to? You know that won't happen as long as you make sure, and underlining will help to solidify that for you in your mind. So listen, read, and mark the instructions. And then you have time to predict the type of answers that you're going to be listening for. And often in predicting in other types of questions, when we have more text in the questions to deal with, we'll use a keyword strategy. And we do want to be aware of the keywords. But when we have a question like this, where there is not a lot of text, where there's mainly short questions to answer, one of the best strategies is to simply put a little note to help you know the type of answer that you're listening for. For example, what time does the farm park open? I'm listening for a time. What two attractions are most popular? There are other words for attractions and popular, so you'll want to be thinking of possible synonyms for those words as you're listening. But you know that the answer is probably going to be a noun and adjective combination. Okay, and that's important to realize that ahead of time, and just make a little note so that when you come to these questions, you know exactly what you're listening for. And then you have two improvements that are planned. And underlining a word like planned is very important because it's talking about something to do in the future. So as you're listening to the recording, if they're talking about the past or the present, you may not be so keen as you will be when they start talking about the future. And you know that they're going to make some changes, enhancements, or improvements. Again, you're thinking of synonyms. And it again is probably going to be a noun and adjective combination. So this is how you make the best use of your time when you're preparing for questions in the short answer type of question. And then again, be aware of synonyms and paraphrasing. Attractions, the synonym for attractions could be events or highlights. Most popular could be most common, most attractive, and improvements. You could have changes, enhancements. These are the type of things to just think about as you're preparing for the possibilities of the types of words that you're going to hear. So that's basically your whole strategy when it comes to short answer questions. And one other thing that I like to add in these lessons is just to make sure that you're aware of distractions as you're listening to questions. And usually this will be a change in the sentence. They may make one statement and then change it. For example, by using the word but or however. Or they may put something in the past tense and say what it was and what it is now. And the reason that they give you these two things is to try to distract you from being patient and waiting for the answer that you want to use. So the key in the listening section is always be patient and wait for the correct answer. However, when you do hear the right answer, write it down immediately. Don't second guess it, and move on and prepare for the next question. So it's a combination of being patient and acting immediately when the time is right, when you hear the answer to your question. I hope you found this lesson helpful. As promised, in your notes or the comments for this video, you will find a link to the recording so you can practice this sample question, and you'll also find a link for the answers. And all the best as you continue to prepare for the IELTS exam.